I missed the freedom of self-employment. I missed the fear. I like it. I like being scared, going, oh God, I've got to pay some rent next week. I've got to pay some bills.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Fit to Grit cast, where we sit down and talk through all those visionary ideas that come to us during our normal daily gym break. I'm your host, Zach Coleman, and I have a special guest today, Paul. Paul, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? Just get right into it. Tell everyone a little bit about your story, and we'll kind of go from there.
Hi there, Zach. Thanks for having me on. I am Paul Waters. I have been in the fitness industry, or fitness and health and well-being industry, or however you want to term it these days, for nearly 25 years. I think 24th year this year. And I've done all sorts of stuff, which is part of the fun, really, part of the journey, right from a very, very lowly paid gym instructor on a very small wage, right through to sort of running my own business for the past 10, 11 years. And again, in simple terms, it does all sorts of stuff. I do everything from health screening to one-to-one personal training for people with medical conditions, to teaching people and training people through fitness and personal trainer qualifications and courses, through to consultancy work for education companies, creating courses and assessments for them, do some corporate well-being stuff, seminars, workshops, events. I like variety.
That's a visionary thing, by the way. That's a true indicator of a CEO slash someone who's has all the ideas, right? And
Yeah.
likes change. It's also part of being an entrepreneur. I think we all like to make change. It's just understanding when and how to, and if you can make those pivots and or changes in the business. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about the pivotal point when you first started your brand, started your business? What was the deciding factor? What in your life got you to the point where you were like, I'm just going to go out and do this on my own?
It's probably a couple of times, really, because I've run a couple of businesses, and then the first time sort of been drawn back into the employment world and then gone back out again. The first time, really, got a job as a gym instructor, like I'd said, and after not a very long period of time, was made redundant when the gym announced that they were closing. And that was right back at the start of the 21st century, when the trend was just coming in for self-employed personal trainers in gym spaces. So never really been done before. And it was right at the start of that trend. I got offered a couple of employed jobs that sort of paid okay and looked quite promising and gave a nice little pension. But then I got offered this opportunity to go and run my own PT business much earlier than I ever thought I would. Out of a big gym just on the edge of Birmingham, the old Fitness First chain. And they had 5,500 members and not many personal trainers in there. And I thought, this looks like fun. Had a chat with my parents, and my dad kind of said, is there any money in this? And I said, I don't know, but I'm quite excited to find out, and also quite excited to do something that I just really want to do and really excites me. And I said, if it doesn't work, I've been offered a couple of jobs. I could probably go and get another one if it doesn't go so well. And within 3 months of going self-employed in there, I think I had 106 clients on my books. And I was working 16-hour days, Monday to Friday, 12-hour day on Saturday, and the odd few hours on Sunday, just to really keep going. Basically, it was a lot of PT. And I kind of realized very, very quickly that I was getting paid to do something that I loved, rather than having a job, if that makes sense. And it was just bloody brilliant, really. It was exhausting, don't get me wrong. And sort of a few years down the line, I realized it was too much and it was too intense, too many hours, sort of burning the candle at both ends, and sort of getting to the point where you're not really living and reflecting the lifestyle that you wanted for your clientele. But I built the business as quite a young person, early 20s, just out of uni, and had lots of energy, and it was called Motivate, and it was all about sort of pushing people on and encouraging people. But I learned quite a lot along the way about how hard to push people. When we'd been trained as personal trainers, we'd sort of been trained to don't smash people, really. It was all about interval training and pushing them to failure, as the words we use quite a lot. And I learned quite often. I remember one client very early doors doing a session like that, and him texting me the next day on a proper old phone saying I couldn't go to work today because I couldn't move. And me thinking, as much as we've been taught this doesn't seem like the right way to necessarily do this for everyone. And so I got this idea in my head for a business that was more about well-being and this really holistic approach to stuff. and I came up with a name for it and some logos and some strapline pieces. And it sort of festered away in the background. And then I ended up moving away from the self-employed piece, getting sort of invited back into the fitness and wellbeing world for some really exciting jobs. Firstly, in the hospitals, doing some sort of medical health screening type stuff in private medical world, then into education and becoming a teacher, training others to be PTs, and then sort of gradually progressing my way through that business, which was the biggest training provider in the UK at the time, until eventually I was in charge of the courses and the qualifications that we created and delivered. And I think we put 11,000 learners in the active leisure sector, as we called it, through. And I loved all that stuff, and I loved how much, when I was a PT and I was helping 50, 100 clients, it was great. And then when I was a tutor helping 20 PTs, helping 50 clients each, I was like, this is amazing because I can help 1,000 people if this course is good. And
Yeah.
then when I was a senior tutor and I was helping 6 tutors help 20 people each. And then when I was curriculum manager and we had 160 tutors and trainers helping 11,000 learners a year, I realized that my reach for the courses and their impact was in the millions, really. We could change millions of lives if those courses were any good. And that gave me a massive buzz. But at the same time, I missed the freedom of self-employment. I missed the fear. I like it. I like being scared, going, oh God, I've got to pay some rent next week. I've got to pay some bills. Best get some new clients on board. Best get a new project over the line. And I miss that excitement of really, if it works, it's you, and if it doesn't work, it's you. And so at the time, the education company I was with, there's some other stuff in there. The lady who worked for me at the time, I was actually in a relationship with, and it's quite claustrophobic for us. We worked together, lived together,
Mhm.
etc. And so I decided to just, some other things happened at work, and I thought, oh, it's not going the way I really want it to go now. And so I just decided to take the leap and go back to self-employment and pull back that idea that I'd had 10 years before for this sort of well-being based approach. And that's when Balance was born. And I've been doing that for 11 years last month. And it's great.
So I want to go back a little bit here because there's two things that I think that you learned, learned in it. Yes, there's nothing wrong with going back to, of course, going back to the corporate world if you feel like a business failed. I mean, they always say, hey, if a business isn't working for you or if something's going on, then you kind of have to either find out what's not working and fix it, and or go a whole different direction. And you know, it sounds to me it just didn't live up to the values. You got to a point where you're like, I love doing this, but still you were working 16-hour days, which shows that, you know, you were at a point where, hey, it doesn't matter how much you love something,
Yeah.
like balance is still key, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Balance, like I said, was the name that I'd come up with for this other business.
Yeah.
And I wasn't kind of living the values that I wanted that to really reflect. I was living the values of a sort of 25-year-old, smashing it out, pushing it hard.
Hmm.
Don't get me wrong, it earned good money early doors, and that helped me in life. It's not a long-term sustainable thing. You can see why the industry suffers really with burnout and people doing a couple of years and then getting out of it. And then partly there were just other things. It wasn't so much even about just the business. It was that some of the opportunities that came up were just really exciting to learn some new things. So going into the medical world and learning some well-being stuff, and I learned to take bloods and do ECGs and all this really cool medical testing. And I learned to blend that stuff with the fitness stuff I'd learned. Um, and it just felt like a really interesting thing to want to learn more about. It just excited me again. Sometimes when you've done something, you think, I'm pretty good at this now. I could do this forever and it would be fairly easy to just tick it along. I kind of wanted to challenge myself a little bit and learn a bit more, well, a lot more.
And that makes sense. Like you wanted to get deep in it. It's a lot like, you know, me, for instance, we're moving much more towards our main agency is focusing much more on education. So I had to take the leap to be like, well, I want to be a better communicator so that I
Yeah.
can educate. So I have to do certain things myself to be a better communicator, which, you know, led me down a certain path as well. And so for you, you went in, but back to when you started the new business, because I think that there's a correlation. There's a correlation here that you as a person kind of went through that's very similar to even let's take a hypothetical here. Let's say you didn't shut down your business and you were just hitting some of those barriers that a lot of businesses hit at a certain level, especially in that environment that need to make a
Absolutely.
shift, right? And
Yeah.
the key thing that you kind of mentioned when you reestablished the direction and the goals was your values. You had to sit back and you had to say, hey, I have to live these values. I just don't want to push these values, but I have to live these values. How has kind of bringing back that balance and bringing back those values in yourself and what you're trying to achieve now in the last 11 years, how has that helped you not just grow as a business owner, but as an individual?
To be honest, what you've just said is sort of exactly right. The way that Balance is run, and actually my partner has now recently come on board with Balance. We first and foremost do everything we do and make business decisions based on our values. About a year ago, we sat down again when we knew she was going to come on board and we were going to tweak and play with some things. And we said, actually, what is it that really makes us happy in life? And we pulled out sort of 5 key values that are really important to us, but reflect the business as well. And for us, business isn't about turning over huge amounts of money. That's not what drives happiness for us. We sat and we were like, what are the things that are really important to us in life? Time, nature, family, people, social interaction, health and well-being. And we were like, how do we create and tweak this business to really reflect all of those so that we just really enjoy doing it? Yeah, that was big to us. Obviously, you have to earn and you have to pay for life and pay bills, etc. But if you work hard and you're good at something, you can generally do that. Don't get me wrong; it's hard. It's harder than ever.
And they say it is. I mean to interrupt you because I want to keep going on this, but it brings up a funny story because I feel like so many people look online and they're like, oh, easy, just start a business, just start a business. And I've come to realize the reason they do that is so that you take that leap, not realizing that, oh, once you're in it, you're like, oh, this is hard, man. This is hard.
And it is hard, and it's funny. Business isn't necessarily, especially these type of businesses, where quite a bit of what you do sometimes is selling you
Hmm.
and just selling time for money in a sense. And I know there are models and you do things that sort of change it so that it isn't just flat fee per hour, but you're still selling you're selling your energy as much as anything. You're selling your knowledge and your skills, but you're selling your time and your energy and your passion to help people. And business isn't always linear. It doesn't necessarily follow that it'll just get better and better and better. Every business goes through a lean spell and a harder spell, and then you have to readjust, and then the environment and the world changes a bit, and you go, okay, what's different now? Oh, COVID hit. Oh, this online thing's really trendy now. And how are we going to blend to that? Do we want to blend to that? And so you're constantly readjusting and reevaluating it. For us, it's just always been really important that we don't judge success by numbers necessarily. We don't judge by turnover. We don't judge by growth. Balance for us was about finding a level and a size of the business that makes us happy and brings in money, but allows us to live the life that we really enjoy living.
Yeah.
That's our key. And that's not right for everyone. Some people want to build a business that grows and grows and grows, and they bring in people and they grow it to a size where it's bigger and they can sell it. And I get that. It's the big model of business in the capitalist world, isn't it? But it doesn't float our boat. If someone said to me, "Oh, would you like to sell your business?" I'd be like, "Hell no! Why do I want to sell? Working is really good for your well-being, and I can see me working until I'm 95." Because actually, you look at the people who keep working, the actors, the singers, and things like that, and they seem the happiest and the most content and the healthiest people you'll ever come across. So that's a really big thing for me. I'm not looking for an out. I'm looking for a way to stay in. That's key. And as you said, it's what good is having any money if I haven't got time to watch my kids grow up and change? And they're like, my little one's nearly 3 at the moment, and we've got a 6-month-old, and I love it because I spend at least 4 days of my working week at home, and I see them a lot, and I hear their first words, and I see them move and change. And the little one comes and joins me upstairs in the office now and joins in with little workouts. He smashed out a 10K kettlebell deadlift the other day, and I was thinking, wow, stronger than I am. Um, and those, and so we deliver everything, and we think everything we consider, we look at it and we go, does that fit with our values? Is it going to help us live how we want to? And if it doesn't, we let it pass.
And I think that's a good way to put it. I think the biggest misconception that I see as a brander in this industry is we'll get a lot of clients that come to us and they'll be like, here are our values. And they'll just have a piece of paper that they had someone just write down these random values. And I'm like, just writing down, creating a quick logo, creating, that stuff, like just not really living to develop what those values and the guides look like. Right.
Yeah.
And I think and that hits all of us. I do see a huge correlation between life purpose and what I call personal rebrands to, business rebrands. You talked about it a little bit. There are ebbs and flows. You have to change things sometimes. You have to find, and that balance and your values are your guide to kind of hold you, not just you on track, but the people that you're going to hire and work with, right? Like, hey, like, this is our guide. Like, you probably your partner. You sat down, you probably made sure when you brought them on board that you were like, huh, do you match these values? Like, is this something, or you just knew they did, and that's how you guys connected, is because you guys connected in that way. And so you probably in your first business thing, you probably didn't. I take it you just probably weren't knowledgeable enough to understand those points of leveraging values yet. I mean, you were new at business. It makes sense.
It's a model when you're young, energy drives a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I kind of like, I love PT and I love helping people. And I was in an environment where there were thousands of members. And I found that if I talked to someone and had a chat and listened to them, more often than not, they'd be fairly keen to have a proper consultation, and then they'd sign up. And sort of the business became a bit like a runaway train, really. It's sort of like,
Mhm.
and then friends and family of clients that I'd signed up would say, oh, so and so said your sessions are really good. Can you train me? And I'd sort of feel bad to say no. And it sort of ran away with itself. And I loved it so much. It was just so much fun to do. And even when I was exhausted, it was brilliant fun. Even when I'd started a session at 6 a.m. in the morning and I was doing my 15th of the day at 9 p.m. at night, I still wanted to put as much energy into that client session as I did to the first one. It just wasn't sustainable in the long term for my well-being. And that model itself, it doesn't lend itself brilliantly to change. You can put your prices up a little bit, but there's not loads of flex in how you deliver in those models. The clients are there. You have to go and attract them.
Mhm.
And I kind of, like you said, I needed to learn a few more things going into the well-being space and learning. Actually, when we were doing it, a lot of it was always about fitness. PT 25 years ago was about being fit, and it's still, a lot of it still is about exercise and blah, blah, blah. And I quite often found that when I was working with people, that wasn't the barrier that was actually stopping them. It was their nutrition, it was their sleep, it was their stress, it was their relationship challenges. It was the sort of the fact that they didn't enjoy their work that was driving their stress, that was driving their bad eating, that was making them sleep badly. And it was all this holistic stuff. And I was kind of like, oh, I need something that can address all of those points. I want to be able to offer something where we say, let's look at your well-being from every different angle. And that's where I created the balance idea and the sort of the branding piece that sat around balance. And we have this thing called Think, Eat, Live, Move, which is psychology, nutrition, lifestyle, exercise. And we look at the client as a whole, and we say, what's your goal? What psychological tools have we got that we can get there? What nutritional tools have we got? What lifestyle and sleep and stress management tools have we got? What exercise tools have we got? And when I went back into it with that approach, people seem to do really well. It's nice. They get results.
Yeah.
Yes. And also they get to the point where they don't really need me, which I really love.
I think that I think you found a hidden gem, because it's one of those things that I'm seeing common in the industry right now. If you're an online company or you still have a brick and mortar, it doesn't matter. I mean, we can get into that in a little bit here, but I think overall, like, and that's the point of this podcast, right? The point of this cast in general is the fact of the mental side, but yet leveraging the mental side based off of what you've learned from the physical side. Like, I'm a big component. I'm a big component myself. Like, when I was younger, I was very similar. Like, I remember I would eat fake health. It was like fake healthy, right? I'm like, I have to get 380 carbs in a day. So I was like, there's no way I can do that with vegetables. So I started eating, spaghetti and all this stuff to get my carbs in my large amount so I can get my workout on, and, over time, I, of course, went through my own trials and tribulations of learning that and setting goals, did keto 3 to 4 times and realized, hey, it's about balance. It's not about extremes. And now I'm at a point where I have 3 young kids myself, right? I have almost a year old, so pretty close to your youngest. I have a 3-year-old. He just turned 3, and I have a 5-year-old. And, you know, I lost going to work out and my runs and all that. I lost all that stuff because I was so focused on, very similar to you did in your first business. I was like, I need to work this many hours. And there's a lot behind that. There's all about, like, when you start replicating things, you have to start bringing teams on. And when you start bringing teams on, things are going to fall through the cracks. You need to fix them constantly. But I tended to lose one of my biggest values, which was connection. Like, that's one of my biggest values is, I'm sitting behind the desk all day. Like you, I love meeting people. I love going out, and not just connection with other people, but connection with myself. So
Yeah.
this bringing the studio back in, bringing my workouts back in, bringing my runs back in was actually a time that brought my visionary time in, and actually started looking at it from more of a mental side. Like, hey, this is just more for me, and more because I like my time and my space to be accountable for myself and to work on myself, right? And so I feel like you found a hidden gem because you found that value that kind of combines one of the things that's missing in the industry to begin with, which is, like you said, it's not just about physical, it's about, hey, how do you do the other things in your life that really hold that accountable, and you meshed it into the values of what you're trying to do as an organization, which just helps spread the message of what you're doing further, not just externally, but how you hire and all that. So it's really building up strong. And so I want to take a little detour here, and I want to ask you a little bit about the differences, because I know now you are complete. You are complete. You work from home. You love that space. You create your own. And I don't know, you may have a space. I'm not sure, but you live the more online lifestyle, doing these programs, which means that you're trying to reach a whole bunch of more people compared to like a PT center, where it's like, oh well, our audience is in this 5-mile radius. So what challenges or situations have you gone through in the last 11 years, just kind of comprehending and understanding the difference in the way you market, the way you create your content, the kind of channels you use, and really how the goals that you've put aside for the growth of your brand?
It's really interesting actually, because again, we're very much. I imagine we're a very unconventional business, and I also imagine some people will look at our business and go, "Well, that's not a big business. It's not necessarily a growing business in inverted commas," um, and so it can be deemed as unsuccessful if you look at it like that. As I said, for us, we judge success by our values and
Yeah.
everything from there. And interestingly, up till sort of COVID, pre-COVID, a lot of my work was still what I'd call human. So a lot of it was in the classroom, teaching courses, traveling around the country, staying in hotels, one-to-one personal training work, and a lot of one-to-one mentoring work with PTs, sitting in a coffee shop talking about what they want to do with their business, real personal touch stuff. And obviously, COVID changed the world, didn't it?
Yeah.
Um, and it changed everything. So the one-to-one obviously drifted for a while because we weren't allowed. The teaching face-to-face courses drifted because of COVID, but then one of two things happened. Some of the training companies went bust, and some of the other ones went, we could just film this as a video and we could just sell a personal training course, whereas where the PT never actually comes to the gym and learns it. They just watch some videos online. And then after that, they can make a video of them exercising, and then they'll be fine as a personal trainer. And that's sort of how the fitness industry education piece evolved. And I found myself kind of redundant in all aspects of the things that I was really good at, the human interaction piece. And I had to rebuild post-COVID to be much more focused on being a writer and a content creator for education companies, and a little bit for balance as well. And I get a huge amount of sort of a big chunk of my work for the past 3-4 years has been people coming saying, we want to create a course on X, children's fitness,
Mhm.
adolescence, strength, core, nutrition, sleep, whatever. And I would say, that'll take me 10 days. I'll have that written for you. I can blah, blah, blah. And I'd stand at my computer and write about it. And I like that. I love writing. I've written a couple of books, and I find huge joy in writing. But again, last year I was sat talking to my partner. I was like, you know what? I really miss people.
Yeah.
human stuff. And she's exactly the same. She's a yoga teacher by trade and a personal trainer. And obviously, you know this,
Yeah.
when you have young kids, it's a lot of work on mom, and mom doesn't get much time necessarily. And so her own business had sort of just really been on freeze since COVID, partly because of the COVID thing, and then because of the having children stuff. It just didn't work for us both to be self-employed. We'd moved out of the place we lived. And then last year we sat down and we just said, we need to change this. And we need to change it for a couple of reasons. One, we need more human stuff again. And we need to look at our channels and actually get away from Google ads and Facebook marketing, and do the swim the other way. Every other fish is going down the
Yeah.
let's go more. Let's just go back to human stuff. And two, we sort of said, how do we get my partner back in the business? How do we find a model that allows her to do some work? So we sat down and we listed all the things that we have skills in and sort of abilities in, and we had personal training, me with the sort of medical health specialism, her with a bit of that and anti-postnatal and some other areas, nutrition and lifestyle coaching, which is sort of my area, the sort of motivational interviewing, behavior change piece. We had health screening, which again is my area, the blood testing, the blood pressure. And then we had deep tissue massage, which is Lou's area. And we had yoga. And we were like, what happens if we made an offer that was human in our local city where we live? And we said to people, you can pay us for a monthly fee for 1 session a week, 2 sessions a week, whatever you want. But here's the thing, every week you get to choose which of the services you want. So if you say this week we want a massage because I'm achy, Lou goes and you have a massage. Next week, if you say, oh, can we do my health screening and check my bloods and my glucose and da-da-da, I go and I run them a health screen for a session. The next week we do a personal training session and they choose whether they want me or Lou depending on the speciality. The next week they say, oh, can we talk nutrition this week? So all they're doing is buying us and our time. And we were like, how do we human brand this? How do we market it? And we're like, let's just go a lot more, get out and talk to people again. Go out and talk to local businesses. Go out and talk to community stuff. So I do what I've always done when business is tired. I went out and just walked around the high street in the city where we live and looked at different businesses and popped in and said, hi, I'm Paul. This is what I do. Would it be of any interest to you guys, or is there anything you think we can work together on? And we did a little post on a community Facebook page, which isn't really a salesy thing, but it's just a very sort of events going on in the area stuff. And we didn't sell it. We were very human. We're like, this is us. It's our background. Here's a picture of us with the kids. This is what we offer. If anyone's interested, come and have a chat. And actually, we've only been running it for a month or so. And I think we've taken on sort of 8 clients already off it, which isn't huge numbers. But actually, in terms of financials, it's the rent paid basically.
Yeah.
We've managed to pivot away from a lot of online and me chasing projects and saying, right, who needs some work on this, to just something where we've got a really small niche client base that are really local, and it lets Lou go out and do the odd hour of work here and there while I look after the kids. And it's a really flexible work day for us. We can swap. She can go and have an hour away from being mum, and I become down for an hour, and then she comes back and I've got a client, and it's not a huge revenue model, but as we said earlier, that's not our goal.
Yeah.
The values piece is, it's beautiful for us. Bit of Facebook marketing, bit of local business connection, bit of networking. I've done a few talks and I've got a couple lined up next month, sort of joining the local business networking group and doing the breakfasts, but just real people marketing.
Yeah. And there's two things there I want to bring up. One is because we've talked a couple of times about definition of success. I think so many people in today's market think that, to be a successful business, it's all about that top line revenue, right? But I feel like when people start chasing top line revenue, I mean, and money is of course always important. Money puts food on the table. It's what pays employees. It's what pays, that flexibility of working from home if you need to. But there's this thing in society that I think that we all have to get away from, because we all see these large corporations coming out here. And really all these large corporations, their biggest struggle is being more human, is how do we connect more with people? And people fall into this trap, which leads to the second point that you brought up, which I think is brilliant, which is what I call marketing fatigue. You see all these big fish, coming out here and saying, hey, we need to do this, this, and this. This is what this person's doing. We need to have this. And then they look at the budget it takes to do that. I mean, I run a team of 6 to 10 people, right? So when someone comes in and be like, can you do this for $10? I'm like, I'm sorry, man. Like, I have to pay people. Like,
Yeah.
and a lot of that comes down to the fact that people think that they have to do that. I love how you kind of looked at your values. And the key point here is to look at your values from all aspects, even the way you market. So that goes back to your brand strategy. It seems like you've done a really good job at going back and thinking high level, to like what's really going to make an impact, what's really going to make a shift, and not just doing it, for instance, for yourself, but using him as a guide towards even the way you market. And I'm very similar in that aspect. I I don't believe in cold outreach, for instance. I'm a human connector, and I'm like, I hate when I get random emails from people I never subscribe to. So I'm like, why would I do that to other people? It's not a form of connection, right? I don't care what anyone says to me. I'm like, I'm sorry, like if you think that that's why I'm not doing it, but I'm not doing it because I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
you know? And and so that's part of my value of connection, right? And I told the team very similar. And so when you brought up that you simplified your marketing strategy, made it more human, I think that in this day and age, even if you have old business, we're following into this trend right now where everyone thinks transactional, and we need to, as people, to realize that those social interactions are going to be the key to connecting, building your brand. And so I'll be one of the first marketers you'll ever hear that says, "No, you don't have to do more. You have to do less." Like, really find what you're passionate about. And it seems like you've done a really good job at that, and shown that you found what success looks like to you, and been able to adapt it around the place and the style of business that you are at. And so I give you really kudos for that. If you were to give anyone advice right now, with your journey, what you have, what kind of advice would you give people?
I think that the thing for me that always helps me is a bit like you were just saying is for me, and it's not always the best way to run a business, but it works for me and it'll work for a lot of people in this industry is do what you're passionate about and do what you believe in. Because if you're passionate and if you love it, it shows. Like when I ran my first business, I got clients not because I was a great personal trainer, but because I was really passionate about it. Um, um, have you ever heard of the Magic Roundabout?
No, I haven't.
It was a
Explain.
children's television program in the UK in the 1980s, and there's a
Yeah.
character called Zebedee that was all just high energy and would just bounce everywhere. It was a bit like a Jack in the Box type character, and I was a bit like sort of Zebedee on acid as a PT in that 20s sort of. I was like, yeah, come on, we can do this. I had rhymes like when I was counting the reps, I'd be like 7, I'm in heaven, 8, looking great, 9, looking fine, and it was cheesy as hell, but it was energy that drove my business and actually really attracted people to want to come and work with me. And that's what made it a success. Okay, I knew a bit about PT and I had a sports science background, so I understood the body. And as I learned more, that fed into keeping the client, but it was the passion piece. And then last year, we were doing stuff and I was spending money on Google Ads and I was trying to learn about Google Ads and trying to put some more online PT out there. And actually, as I did it, I realized I just didn't like it that much. It just wasn't my first love. I've got a couple of online clients and we get on great and it's fantastic. But trying to scale an online PT business didn't make me happy.
Yeah.
It actually made me miserable because I was having to learn more about online marketing, which isn't something I really love learning more about, just not me. And I'm not saying it's a miserable thing. Some people love it. And if they do it. But for us, it was that human piece. And then when we did these things, literally, we'd spend all this time on Google Ads. And then like I say, we did a couple of wonders down the street. We made a really nice postcard, like colourful postcard on Vistaprint with a picture of us with the kids and a little introduction to who we were. Really light touch, not salesy, and just said, like, if you've got any questions or you want a free consultation, we're here. And actually, that's driven our business through the roof. And whilst I was walking, we live in a really small city called Wells in Somerset, which is one of the smallest cities in England, and
Mhm.
it's like a village. And whilst I was walking round, and I had the little one on my front in a carrier, and just dropping the postcards through letterboxes, we were talking to people and saying hello. And actually, we found by having the little ones with us when we did the marketing, it didn't feel like cold calling. And we weren't being pushy. We were just saying, "This is us. We're here.
Yeah.
It's helpful to have a chat." And actually, we've got good business from it. Um,
Well, and that's a way to look at it from a reframe perspective, right? Like
yeah,
I was talking about cold calling. Um, there's nothing. I don't think there's nothing wrong to reframe it in a different perspective. For instance, what you did is you still tried to build a connection with people and get to know them up front, by understanding their business, by giving them this flyer, not being pushy, by allowing yourself to, and you had that connection piece, that relationship piece built in from your values, right? So
yeah,
you could still do cold marketing. For instance, we do a lot of, like, I do a lot of speaking arrangements myself. I go out there and try to do speaking. So I don't necessarily just go out and cold call, but I will find speaking arrangements and I will, of course, pitch to them because they're
yeah.
offering me to do that. So to me,
But
that's
business people have to know you're there.
yeah, people have to know you're there still,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so you
exactly.
still have to do what you do, just not looking at it from a perspective of what I like to call spraying the wall effect, right?
Yeah,
As a lot of studios fall into this trap these days too, where they're like, "Hey, like, let's hire some sales reps and let's just call everyone in our local area." I'm like, and I'll get studio owners that are like, at the lower end of validation mode, it's usually about 250 a year, 350 a year. When they're like, "We just don't know how to bring more people in, like, we're having trouble." I'm like, "Have you thought about just creating a flyer and going door to door?" And they're like, I'm not gonna do that. We're past that." And I'm like, "Digital marketing is not cheap." It's like it
yeah.
takes time and energy, right?
You'll see this, like, there's a big thing these days that people assume that selling online and doing online PT and things like that is is a better and an easier way to make money. And yes, it can reach a wider audience, but it also reaches a much wider competitor base.
Mhm.
So your competitors are now in Buenos Aires and Sydney and Doha and Moscow.
United States.
Yeah, exactly. Your competitors are everywhere when you sell online because anyone can sell to anyone online.
Yeah.
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 Whereas when you sell local and if you've got a venue and a place, being the go-to and being seen to have a really local presence is strong. You build a community out of it. Um, like we did things in the past in the first business. I remember doing one thing where we there was this new really sort of nice new build housing estate on a couple of miles from the gym, and me and another PT were like, well, let's be the first people in there and try and get the sort of be the PTs for nice houses, 4 or 5 bedroom detached, big size. So we did all this door to door stuff, and we just got nowhere really. I think it's because we didn't have children on the front, a kid on the front or a dog winning. Um, and we were like, okay, what do we do next? And they were running a summer fete through the local church, and we asked if we could put on a stand at at the village fete, and we did all these fun sort of fitness challenges with prizes for the families, and actually I think we got like 8 clients from that day just from being there and running this, not salesy, we were just there part of the show, just running this kind of entertainment stall if you like, and we picked up clientele because we got to chat to people, and cards were out, and it was just a different way selling without selling.
Yeah, selling without and that's really what it comes down to. That's really what it comes down to is it was interesting. I was talking to my wife yesterday because I just got off a prospect call the other day with personal training studio out of, I'm not going to say where because I don't want to, out them or anything. But you know, my wife's like some people that I know, I'm in a group as well. I have an accountability group. I work with, other business owners, blah blah blah, and I was talking about the cold calling thing, and they're like, it sounds like you're just afraid to hear no, right?
Yeah.
And I was telling my wife last night, which was kind of an aha moment for me. I was like, I'm just, I'm not afraid of saying no. I'm afraid of, hearing no. I'm afraid of saying yes. I'm at the point, like back to you with values. Like I'm at a point in my life where I don't want to say yes to everyone. Not everyone fits our mold. Not everyone fits my values. And when I start seeing things shine through where it's like, you're just a really not nice person. I'm like, I don't need to work with you, but you
Yeah.
still tend to want to help people. And so I do. I have a fear of saying yes to people more so, which I think is which is kind of funny. So it was back to your point on what you were talking about of being local and having a community, right? Like that is kind of where it goes, and the difference between an online location between doing something local, even if it's out of your home, is so many people with this online perspective, you nailed it on the head, think, oh, if I go in and do grass is greener, if I open an online business, my life will be easier. I'll be able to work from home. And it's like, no, realistically, like you said, larger competitor market, harder to close because you're not building a relationship. And three, online businesses don't have a brick and mortar, so they tend to have to spend, I just say you're spending 3 times as much because you don't have all these other expenses. You need to spend that to market because you're, like you said, broader audience. And if you don't like to market, like you said, learn how to do advertisement or get to the point where you feel comfortable hiring somebody to help you with that stuff, you're going to build the most traction by just going to your local community, building your community locally, off those values, go to community events and kind of do it that way. And I think and the reason I'm so passionate about talking about it is because that's where it should be. That's what it should be, right? It's just less of the let's just go online and, do all this stuff and think that we're going to bring in all this business. I'm like, you're really just deterring your time from actually making a difference in this world because you're limiting yourself. And so everything that I'm just ranting about it now, so I'll stop. But what you're saying, I love what you've done, and I love your confidence in yourself too, which I think is a focal point of this whole podcast, is your ability to understand what you want, let the outside noise not dictate the success that you want to bring in for you and your family and your clients, and the type of person you are, because this is the way online marketing should be, hybrid with community building in an aspect.
Absolutely.
So
Online massively has its place. You can't not have an online
yeah.
presence in many businesses these days, can you? It just sometimes you almost need it just to prove that the business, a bit like we said, still exists.
Mhm.
Hey, we're still here, kind of, we're alive, which is a big achievement in itself. And also online just offers so much benefit in terms of scale and scope and reaching different people. And who's to say you can't have a bricks and mortar gym, but also have an online offering? Because you say, well, actually, we've reached capacity on the people in our gym space. Let's take that message out to the world and deliver it to people in 5 different continents. There's nothing wrong at all with that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would just say, just be, I do see a lot of studio owners, ET owners, etc., trying to do that too early, being like, "Oh, let's try it," and it's like you should have an understanding that driving an online business, even if it's from brick and mortar, is a completely different.
It's a separate business.
Yeah.
It might run under the same limited company, but it's a different business,
It's a
different
different
model.
model. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. And I think for us, because are we lucky? We made a choice that we always choose happiness over finance to a certain level. We know what numbers we need to survive, and those numbers are very clear in our head, and they're tracked. But actually, I remember years ago reading a piece, and actually I've just read the update on it, but there's often a piece of well-being stuff that comes out about how much money equals happiness. And it seems from the science that there's a tipping point that up to a certain point, more money equals more happiness. But actually beyond that point, it tends to drop the other way, often because the amount of effort and time and other sacrifice you have to put in to make more money means that total well-being actually drops beyond a certain level. We also know for things like you win the lottery that you're happy very briefly, but that happiness wears off. Happiness isn't about cash in the bank. It's about habits.
yeah.
To be happy, you have to do the things, like to be fit. You can't train for 6 weeks and stay fit forever. And happiness is exactly the same. To be happy, you have to practice habits that are the things that make you happy. It's just a temporary mood state like sadness or tiredness or whatever. And so we chose to live a life that gives us happiness. And we're like, and if you ask me the question, am I happier now that we've gone offline a lot in the last few months? Massively. It's
Yeah.
joyous.
Yeah.
It's just getting out the house, seeing people just when they get their little wins and they send you a text saying, "Oh, I've lost 2 pounds this week," or I've lifted like 5 kilos extra on that weight, or my run time has gone down, or whatever the goal is. What a great thing to do with life.
Well, and it's interesting because the correlation, like I said earlier, of personal growth, getting to a certain number with money. I mean, that's a direct correlation to what I see multiple stages of business. too. You get to a certain point in business, it is working a lot harder. For studios, I usually see it's probably roughly around the 250 to $400 mark, where for 100,000 a year mark, where they're like, oh, to make it to 1 million, like I need to shift my mindset and start becoming. And then this is what I always tell them. I'm like, how much do you work out still? And they're like, no, I have no time. And I'm like, you because they're like, time equals money. And I have a group, I have trainers, they do all that. I'm like, you need to bring that back in because that's what you love. And you own a gym because that's what you loved. So bring back some of those personal things that made you open this to begin with, and start to shift your job from being at that point, which is usually a manager role, to more of a visionary role, right? And start bringing back those things in your life that you can start to handle. And so back to what you were saying, I just thought it was really unique because there's a tipping point with money. And I went through it myself. I was really big on, I think when I started my brand, this is before my business, my children were born. I kind of ran it off fear, right? I kind of ran it off like, I want to prove to everyone I can do this. I'm passionate. Like I loved what I did, but I'm like, I want to prove to people. And then I had my children and I'm like, wait a minute. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. These are the people that love me. This is my family. And so I had to find a different factor of success for me. And at that point, I'm like, well, I have money. I don't have to worry about money anymore. And so, like, why am I working so hard to go from this level to this level when I have to work really hard to make it to that level, or I can just kind of stay right here, and kind of like learn
Our
from
whole our whole economic foundation, it was sort of set up to believe that growing is stagnation, is failure, aren't we? Like
yeah, yeah.
the whole economic model is kind of like the universe. The view is that it has to ever expand,
Or you
and it,
stay, or you just fail. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. If you keep it the same for 20 years, then somebody would view your business as failing. I find that a really, I don't know, that I think about it a lot these days, and I think about the word that has, especially in the UK, certainly, and in Europe, I think there's a slightly different perspective sometimes in America from what we read over here. But sustainability is a huge thing now, looking after the planet, protecting it, and everything's about sustainability. And sustainability means keeping something as it is. And we think about sustainability in terms of the health of the planet, but we don't necessarily use the term sustainability when it comes to business. It's growth or death. And I find that really, because I look at it through well-being eyes, I find it a really strange concept. Mm.
Well, and it's funny too, if you have and this is something that I want to, because funny enough, our model, what we do is called the sustainable lead flow model, because very similar to you. I'm trying to bring people in to be like, like you don't need to spend thousands of dollars on Facebook ads. You don't need to fight or flight. Like you run a membership model. Like
Yeah.
we bring in 2 to 3 people a month. That's sustainable. Like you could still grow, but still also not, it's almost impossible. Like people come in and they're like, "Oh, I need 100 new clients." I'm like, "Do you know how many businesses grow 10,000% within the first like 1 year or 2 years?" I'm like, "You'll be lucky if you get 10% growth a year." That's a good sustainable, like,
Yeah.
let it happen naturally, instead of thinking that you're this SaaS company that just got millions of dollars that has to, you know, hire 1 million people tomorrow until it breaks, right?
Absolutely. And like you said, if you're trying to build a business where you want investment and you want to grow and you want an exit strategy, it's different. It is
Mhm.
different.
It is
You've got
different, yeah.
different requirements. You've got different pressures because other people are putting money into the business.
Or to franchise, that's another thing too. If you're getting to a point where you're like, "Hey, I wanna
Yeah.
franchise this model," there's but even then, you still have to look back and think about some of those things that you may be missing, like, "Huh, now we have to build systems, and now we have to build, consistency and all that fun stuff." But we're ranting now, I do have to run here in a second, so, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about how they can find you and, where they can reach out to you at?
Absolutely. It's probably the least salesy pitch you'll ever hear from anyone in these conversations. But you can find me on www.balancehealthandfitness.co.uk, and you can get a feel for the things we do around working one-to-one with individuals, a little bit about personal trainer education. if people are in the personal trainer education sector and they're looking for advice on content and consultancy work around developing your own training and education, feel free to get in touch. I also do a little bit of mentoring with personal trainers who want to develop small businesses, small sustainable businesses. If you want to work out how to earn a lot of money, I'm not your man. But if you want to work out how to stay in it for a long time, that I can help with. Yeah, and other than that, I'd say check out All Downhill From Here on Amazon. It's a book that's got nothing to do with fitness, but it's a book I wrote in COVID about cycling from one end of Britain to the other. And also The Complete Guide to Weight Loss, which I wrote a few years ago, which you'll find a few copies of floating around on Amazon and elsewhere.
Well, Paul, thank you. I'll put all those in the description notes as well, so everyone can go to those links. Again, I really thank you for being on. It was a real pleasure to talk with you today. Back to my value of connection, man. Like, these things always make my day. So I really appreciate it, and know that there's other people out there that are seeing how the world and these models should start to be run. And so I appreciate you. And I'm your host, Zach Coleman, with another episode of the Fit to Grit cast. I hope everyone has a good day.